Hi Gagan, welcome.
Hi, ma'am. Thank you so much. Hello, everybody.
Yes, I think we are live.
So, welcome, Omkar Pimple. So now let me give you a little introduction about Siddharth Roy. He's a very young and he's a published author who also regularly contributes to Times of India. He's alumnus of Whistling Woods International, Tata Institute of Social Science. And he's pursuing his second bachelor's in economics honors. And he's also currently a research associate with Member of Parliament India. And to say more about him, he's also conferred with National Youth Award by the government of India for contributing towards student community. So he's a blogger with Times of India. So Siddharth, was really nice. I read few of your articles while I was looking towards your content. It was really good and very inspiring.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you for the introduction.
And let me talk about Gagandeep Makhad. So Gagandeep Makhad is a management consultant and a serial entrepreneur and a researcher who believes in sustainable life, So he works and he's leading 4 companies in diverse industries. But basically they all focus towards sustainable growth of people, an organization that leads to holistic development. So Gagandeep, we see that you're contributing towards the sustainability of Earth through your companies. So welcome, Gagandeep. We'd like to hear more from you. Welcome you all.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you, Usha.
Usha. Hello, welcome. I could call you all the trio. Welcome, Siddharth. Welcome, Omkar, and welcome, Gagan. It is interesting that I have these really young achievers with us today. And I have been really fortunate to have witnessed, at least for Siddharth and Gagan, their journey from a very young age. They were young, 17-year-old, bubbling with energy when they entered college, and that's where I met them. But what was very interesting is that all 3 of them have been very early achievers. They have achieved things which has always been their passion. And what I also find is these things are diverse, really diverse areas. And today, the things that we would want to talk with the 3 of you is many things, amongst many things, is also about how do you all manage this entire juggling thing? How do you manage to be so many different facets, and is this the need of the hour? But before we get to that, we will begin with a little bit on your personal journey. Siddharth, would you like to start? That how did this whole journey start from you, and at what age? Like most of us here, our students here are between 10, 12 years above. So how did it happen for you? And each of you are maybe then begin to share each of you.
So firstly, hello everyone. It's a privilege and honor to be here. And I'm very sorry, like for my face, I've just been traveling and did not sleep for the entire night. So yeah, so keeping that aside, so my journey, I would say my journey started from writing. So writing, not in the sense I will say my first book. Writing, I used to write when I was in my school days. When I was in my 8th standard, I used to write poems. I used to write articles, blogs. I used to write those things. But I never considered those things seriously, because you have to be academically good to get recognition or to know that okay, you're doing good. So that is why I did not my teachers did appreciate me, but that wasn't leveled at par with my academics. So I thought ki yaar, theek hai, that is just for my passion. I will continue that. But in my 11th standard, when I wrote a 1-pager in a brand new classmate notebook, firstly, I got scoldings from my parents, why have you wasted a notebook by scribbling a story that was meant for your physics diagram thing. So my father, actually, he knew a publisher back there in Calcutta, and he actually sent that story to him just out of curiosity, कि मेरा लड़का लिखता कैसा है, थोड़ा देखो. So, and that is how how the entire journey shaped. Now he liked the story. Then I started writing my first book. And then I realized I have been writing from a very young age. I have been writing since for the past 4 years, but I never realized that thing. And then 11th, 12th, I wrote my first book. And I knew one thing for sure, that I did not want to pursue engineering or medical. Like my parents insisted me, but they were very sure, they were sure that what I wanted to do. But I did not have answer to that question. What did I really wanted to do? Because that is a very difficult question. If you ask a student in 11th standard key, how do you plan your entire life like ahead? So I did not have that answer. I just made up some genesis point, and I want to be Genesis. I want to study science and everything. So I just got my parents' confidence. Okay, he's serious about it. So that is how my journey started. But then I was very inclined towards media. I was very inclined towards communication, and that is how I found out about Whistling Woods. And then I pursued my graduation from there. Then from the book, when you write a book like at a very young age, I'll say it very bluntly. When you write a book at a young age, the content is not judged. What is judged is your age. So to be very blunt. So, people started ki, isne book likha hai, isne ye likha hai. And post that, many events started happening. I started to interact with various students. And that is how entire things shape up. And that is still shaping. Now I'm interacting with the students. Now I realize that I have a deeper inclination towards policy related thing, because I like to hear stories and work on their stories. So it's a mix of creativity and positivity that I do. So I'm infusing creativity in this policy making journey. So the events happened. Then I was working with a member of parliament, and now currently I'm working with the government of India at my GOV. So it has been a very not a very straight journey. And I'm very sure the next phase will also be very zigzaggish, but I'm loving this journey, and it's so fun to be a part of it.
Lovely. Omkar, would you like to share?
Yes. First of all, hello everyone, and thank you for having me here. It's a pleasure, and very nice description in a summary, Siddharth. I think it's a really inspiring sort of a story and a sort of background that you have over there. Would love to hear more about it as we connect later. About me, it was a bit. Some parts were similar to what Siddharth mentioned about. So, one part of me was, okay, I do want to pursue science. I do want to tinker around. I do want to build things. But I wanted to build more on the sound engineering side originally as a child. I was teaching and playing guitar and other instruments when I was 15, 16 at that point. And at that point, my parents sort of, I would say, gently nudged me towards, more traditional engineering. So I said, okay, fine, let's do it this way. Eventually, I ended up, studying computer science and engineering, and I did enjoy it, to be fair, right? It was something that I already enjoyed working with computers. I have been, and I still am a gamer at heart. So working closely with computers has been something that, I have really enjoyed. And after that, there was a point in time where you finish your engineering and you have your friends either applying for their masters in the US or getting a job in some sort of an MNC, Infosys, TCS, whatever these kind of companies, right? So at that point, I had in my engineering, not final year, pre-final year, third year, I had 2 backlogs, right? So I failed in 2 subjects. So TCS said, well, we don't take people with backlogs. I'm sorry, right? So I'm like, okay, I'm not eligible to work for these MNCs. My life is finished. Right. That's what you think when you're 20, when you're 21, and when all of your peers are being placed and getting offers and being placed and everything else. And so I said, okay, it's a good starting point to sort of start from scratch again and sort of build out, forget the college, forget everything else, start from scratch. So I joined an early stage startup. So as the first employee for my first job. So I had no idea what I was doing. I had no, I'm like, I don't know what's going to happen here, but let's give it a shot, right? I joined as a mobile engineer. So back in the day, 2012, 13 was when Android phones really became popular. So I was lucky. I decided to buy an Android device. I was lucky. I decided to build for Android apps. And that's what I started doing. So this company was about logistics. So, truckers who deliver things in remote places, etc. They often have difficulty getting or they used to have difficulty getting to these places. Navigation was not there. Internet was not there, and so on. So we built offline navigation apps for truckers in Hindi, Bengali, and a few other languages. This was back in 2013, so before mobile was mainstream. So on one side, I had to grind a lot because I had nothing to prove. There was no basis over there. So, but that grinding was something that was crucial for me to also find what I like and what I don't like. Even within a field, there are things that you enjoy, there are things that you don't enjoy. It's always a mix of both. You can't completely eliminate things that you don't enjoy. But there was it was a good sort of turning point, I would say. And then eventually I worked across different domains, real estate, fintech. That was my last job, where I started as a software engineer, eventually ended up as a software leader of 65 mobile engineers across Berlin, Barcelona, Vienna, New York. So you also learn many things along the way. And then I started a company of my own. I did not do an MBA, but I think the last 2 years have been an executive MBA in their own way. Like learning by doing is something that, I think is the best way to sort of learn and get better at things. So yeah, it's been also, somewhat of a tumultuous journey, quite a lot, I would say. But at the same time, like Siddharth said, you don't have all the answers, not when you're 16, not when you're 20, not when you're 30 sometimes, right? But that should not scare you. I think it's okay. It's a part of it. I think that uncertainty is also what adds some fun to living life, I would say. I think that's what I would like to add here. Yeah.
Definitely come back to. This is a very pertinent thing. Yes. Thank you, Omkar. Gagan, from RJ to this serial entrepreneur and this, motivator, how's the journey?
First of all, thank you. Thank you for having me here. And it's a pleasure to be amongst all of you. My journey has been, I think all of us were in a similar sort of boat right from our childhood. I wanted to be a different person or live a different profession every day. One day I wanted to be the prime minister. The other day I wanted to be a police officer. The other day I would see the convoy of the chief minister passing, and I wanted to, be the CM of the state. Yeah, I think that was, so I'm a small town boy. I've been in Mount Abu almost a good 16, 17 years of my life. So I think that is also what was good. Small towns, they don't really pressurize you to do, to find a lot of answers. They just let you be. So I could go to the civil hospital one day, be around doctors. And this is when I'm talking when I was in my 8th or 7th grade. I could go to the civil hospital. The other day, I could go to the panchayat office, be near the sarpanch and see how it functions. And I never really felt the pressure to decide. It was in my 10th, I think, that we moved to Ahmedabad, which is a slightly, bigger city than Mount Abu. And that is when I had to decide, 11th, 12th hai, biology lena hai. But I was interested in medicine, so I decided to pursue biology. And I was so curious that I didn't want to just read. I wanted to go to the hospital almost all Saturdays. My father is a railway employee, so we could get access to the railway hospital. I loved seeing people getting sutures and, doctors operating. I could stand outside the OT. So I had the opportunity of doing all that and verifying my interest in that space. But that's when, as Anjala ma'am said, radio happened. There was an RJ hunt in Ahmedabad. I happened to have a little heavy voice. I decided, why not give it a try? And I speak a lot. So it was helpful. I went to a station, appeared in the RJ hunt, and I got selected. So on one side, I had my 11th and 12th doing biology and pursuing medical, which is a fairly difficult profession, and have radio on the other side, which is, like a totally fun sort of a profession. I did my 11th, 12th with biology. I had decided to become a doctor and still had radio with me. And that's when Whistling Woods happened. I went to Whistling Woods. I think I was, in my first year, I also decided to start my first company, my first venture, which was a cultural club in Ahmedabad. And you see, even at that point, I had everything going on at the same time. But that's when I decided that entrepreneurship is that one profession which will let me do everything. Like, I really don't have to choose. And I don't have to feel, I can go back to being the small town boy and just do a lot of things, as many things as I want to. And that's when I started building one up these other small projects. And, I started filtering which one works the best for me. So I did my BBA in Media and Communication from Whistling Woods. I was always interested in legal work and law and policy. So I pursued my LLB after that. I always wanted to do a little bit of medical. So I joined my master's in psychology. So I think you can do everything. There's nothing that stops you, and you will end up finding some profession that will let you enjoy all of these things. And it's good to be in confusion. I think it's really good to be in confusion. It will, keep motivating you to do many things. Just to be there.
So I hear this common thread. Okay, all of you are saying that it's good to be in confusion. All of you all are confused. All of you all had to begin from the scratch at some point of your life, leave behind what you were doing and take it up and take the challenge. So my next thing as parents and as I would like to definitely understand that I was reading it the other day somewhere that by 2020 it is expected that a large part of the 2022 rather, a large part of the work definition would have changed. And I do see that there is a change. I mean, this was a 5-year back report. And I also see that, a lot of us parents are constantly told that, you should think out of the box for your child. You should let your child think beyond the obvious. I want to ask all three of you that is it true that there is a new mantra which is awaiting our children when they go out? Because one of you is an entrepreneur. You're working in a cutting edge technology in another land. You are working your own, you're working with the government, you're working with the IT, you're working as an author. I want to understand, is there a new mantra out there? Is it different? Omkar, maybe you can share.
Sure. So I think definitely things are changing faster than they ever have. I think things have accelerated. The rate of change is very high at the moment, I would say. I'll give you an example, right? So we work very closely with universities, traditional universities that have undergrad programs and graduate programs, bachelor's and master's. And at many of these universities, because these universities are massive institutions that are often generally slow due to many reasons, one of them being the size, one of them being, just how traditionally it has been over there. So what has happened over here is that because these universities in the past, they've been sort of a conduit towards the work, sort of the workforce, right? So university students who finish their bachelor's, they would end up joining some sort of a company and they would get a job basically. So in other words, the job of the university was to make sure that students get a job. So often universities, always advertised, let's say, their brand as, oh, these companies came to our company, came to our campus and, hired as many people at this package. Now what has happened is that before LinkedIn and all of these places were not there, right? So now a company can place a job on LinkedIn and they can basically recruit from the entire country. They don't need to go to a campus. So what has happened is that, and companies are finding that there are so many students, there are so many individuals, generally speaking, who are early in their careers and are ready to do a job. They don't need to have necessarily a degree or whatever. In other words, the value or the recognition, let's say, in the corporate space of a degree is reducing more and more and more. Part because what is taught in undergrad is often not directly applicable to what they would do in real life. And I think that has been the case in every scenario, like almost every situation. Everything that you've learned during your bachelor's needs to be unlearned immediately in the first couple of years of your professional life. That's what has been the trend, and more people are seeing it in the industry, like the job employers, basically. But also students are starting to also see these things, and so are parents, and so is the rest of the world. So now universities are faced with the challenge, for example, of how to deal with this rate of change, that the world is coming closer, connections are coming, connections are more decentralized. There is no centralized the role of the centralized institution is reducing slowly and slowly. So that gives rise to many social paradigms also. It's a bigger topic, which I won't go into detail at the moment. But this also gives rise to many different kinds of jobs. Like 10 years ago, there was, or maybe 15 years ago, I don't think there was a job for social media specialist or marketer. But in the last 5, maybe 7 years or so, this role has been accelerating like anything, because the role of social media today, of course, for entertainment, but also for in the professional space, in the corporate space, is massive. Similarly, like we build in the extended reality space, so we see that there are many roles that are coming up. Like, for example, a digital twin engineer, right? So digital twinning is essentially you taking an object that is in the physical world and creating a digital twin out of it that you can use in a virtual world. So you need to have, the sense of a 3D space. Like architecture teaches you these things, for example, like how any object is placed in the physical space. So there are many of these sort of interdisciplinary roles that are coming up more and more as technology shapes society and society shapes technology. This is just one example. There are many more examples that I can run through. But yeah, I think I hope I was able to sort of put the point across that it's a fast changing world, and the only skill or the only quality that will help us sort of stay upfront is adaptability, is how I would put it, like the ability to adapt quickly to changing circumstances.
So speaking of, having alternate careers and having alternate options. So I would like to know from Sid and Gagandeep, like, what do you all think? Like, having these multiple careers is it important for our children to like not just focus on one thing? Because I assume both of y'all are doing that. So how important it is for children to keep that perspective if moving forward? Because as Omkar also mentioned, that there's a lot of intermingling of different aspects, different careers are coming together. So how important it is? Siddhant, can we start with you?
Sure. So when I was in Whistling Woods, our HOD, so Laili ma'am, so she told me one thing when I asked her that I do not like this particular thing. So when we were doing sound editing, I'll just give you an example. So I was like, we were asked to design a podcast, and we had to do it by the end of the day. And we did not have a sound editor. So I told ma'am that we do not have a sound editor, and so we cannot submit it. Ma'am is like, that is not my problem. If you do not submit it, I'm going to deduct the marks. So I'm like, how do I do it? So she's like, you learn how to edit the sound. You learn how to do that. I'm like, it's not possible. Like in 12 hours or so. It's like, if you think it is not possible, that won't be possible. And like, sometimes we are too, like, we have preconceived notions about many things. I do not like this. I do not like that, without even trying that particular. I was that guy who did not like history at all in my school. I was that guy who did not like law. Matlab, Gagandeep also knows it. Like, pehle, when I used to see the law books, I was like, I cannot read it. But now I love doing all those things. Now I love doing all these things. So it's not about having many careers. It's about trying and seeing what works best for you, because there is no one shoe size for everyone. So that is very sure. And like, when in this traditional system, when we are going like after 10th, after 12th, after graduation, we are following a particular system, and we know the outcome is going to be this, outcome is going to be XYZ. But there is no XYZ. Like, if you follow XYZ, there are many things attached to it. So why not try out various things and see what suits you the best? There are many options opening up. And as Omkar was saying, there are multiple avenues that will open up. And maybe after 5 years, we are not able to think of something, but that will be possible in the next coming years. So it's all about, we need to teach students not what to think. We need to teach them how to think. And I believe if we teach them things like how to think, they will sort out themselves. We cannot handhold them. At one point of time, we'll have to put them in the pedestal, and it's their journey. They'll have to take it forward.
For words from this boy. Yes, sorry, your time.
I think I've experienced something similar, and I got a chance to experience this more like an employer. I mean, the moment I started my first company, we are taught things to hire people from the best colleges. So I came back to Ahmedabad, decided to set up interviews with the best universities, went to the panel, hired the best people, and I discovered it's really not working out. I'm paying them the money that they're asking for. In some cases, I'm paying them the money, the salary based on their last salary, but it's not working out really. And that's when one of our relatives wrote to me from our hometown saying that, why don't you hire this boy from Mount Abu, and he's looking for a job. And I hired him, and I had 6 employees then. The seventh boy is who I think who bought some 60% increase in our overall business. And that really changed my perspective that and the boy had not done anything around sustainability, around business management, around legal, nothing at all. All he was doing was, just following his hunch. If he didn't know something, he would just go Google it, had a question, came and asked me that question, find the answers, and he figured his way out. And that's when our HR policies really changed. So that was one significant thing that I discovered, that doesn't matter what college you're from. Of course, it can help in some areas, but right now I have 45 employees in the major project that I run. With all of them, one thing that's similar is that the last thing I ask is which college you're from or how much you've studied. I have some practical questions that I ask them. I always check their IQ. Of course, that has to be checked, but I really check their EQ, It doesn't matter which college they're from. If they're not able to speak with the client, they don't have the patience to answer to a question twice. I hire people from great colleges, and if you ask them the same question the second time, they just can't answer. They lose their temper, or they can't really they can't help. They miss out on the basics of life. They want to leave office they will come at 10, but they want to leave at 7. I am not a believer of that philosophy of that if your work is something that you really dread, then you're not going to enjoy your life because you're spending 8 hours here. So we started looking at the alternate sides of people, which is their EQ, their spiritual quotient. Like I would really get interested in a candidate if I found an interest like gardening or farming. That really told me that this person must be really patient, because once you put a seed in the soil and you have to wait for 3 months for a flower to come, and it doesn't come sometimes. That really tests your patience. And if you are able to do that, you're definitely going to, and if you're interested in music, for example, you are going to be a patient person. So I think, and then also these things, the way jobs are changing, another, as Omkar said, that people have to shift to multiple roles, and you really can't stop change, right? One thing that I discovered in my company was that even if I'm hiring social media managers, they don't just have to be social media managers. As much as I try it, as much as they want it, it cannot be so. They have to become client servicing managers, and they have to know how to drive, and they have to know how to, make tea someday when, the help is not there in office. And you have to do everything. It doesn't matter which college you're from. The client is here and you're sitting in ego, not wanting to serve water. I've seen meetings go down on things as little as this. So jobs are going to keep changing, and that's going to happen, but it really matters what's, here inside. I mean, if those things are in balance, your IQ, EQ, your SQ, the spiritual quotient, and, if you're a balanced sort of an individual, doesn't matter how many jobs change, doesn't matter how much the environment changes, you're going to adapt to it, because we are making these jobs, right? At the end of the day, we humans are doing this. So of course we can learn how to cope up with them if this is in balance, I think.
Wow, that is profound. Very nice.
Yeah. In fact, I want to ask with this, it's been on my mind, is there a new definition of success then? Is there an emerging new definition of success? Siddharth, maybe you could begin and share. Each of you can share. What do you think?
So, for example, success is very traditionally defined in like in our system that you achieve this, you will be successful. First success begins like when like if you get a scholarship in 4th standard, you are a very successful student. People have that notion that, oh, you're a scholar. Then 10th, you achieve good marks above 90, you get 12th graduation. It goes on. So traditionally, we have always defined success in academics and in other terms. But now we are celebrating the smaller things. We are celebrating the uneven things. We are celebrating the things that are not so well defined. So I believe the definition of success is again differs from individual to individual. For me, success is very different from somebody else who can define success. For example, people were asking like, how do you feel after getting a government job? Like after you are working with the MyGov, and how are you feeling? So like people were really fascinated about that. For them, that was like a judging parameter. For them, that was a tick box kind of thing. So I ticked the box for them. So for them, I am successful. But for me, what I celebrated is like I'll just give you an example. I just completed 50 days in Delhi. So setting up a new setting in a new city, setting up a new home, buying groceries for first time, like doing everything for the very first time, that made me even more happier. So for me, that is even bigger success than what I have done. So everyone has different definitions definition of success. So I believe it's up to us how do we like perceive it, and we do not need to go by what people think. Are you successful or not? Because at the end of the day, you are the one, you are answerable to yourself. So have that inner quotient of success ready, have that happiness, and I guess we are sorted.
Gagan, what do you have to say? Do you see a new definition of success emerging?
I think every day when I leave work, even when I form my HR policies, anything I do, I really like to ask myself, did I change something, a little something? I don't mean changing worlds or like, planting 100 trees a day. That you can't do that every day, that's not possible. But could you speak to one employee? Could you motivate one person? Could you make one client happy? So I try to, and sometimes you go so much into the, you go into the zone of changing things that you lose out on you. So I try to balance two things. My mantra is super simple there. Are you able to contribute and are you having fun? If you're having fun, if it's little fun also, that's all right. If you're contributing even little bit, I think that's enough. So everybody will have their different definitions of success. I don't think I or any of us can define it for anybody. But I think looking at a bigger picture, if we've been sent here, we've been sent for something, right? So we should think of changing one little thing somewhere by our job, by our entrepreneurship, by being in the. It doesn't matter. Siddharth is in a government job. Who would say 5 years back that being in a government job, somebody would hire somebody so dynamic like Siddharth. But he's making the platform, he's contributed towards making the platform so accessible. You will never download the government app, right? But the reason they're hiring people like him so that we download the app tomorrow and we use that. So I think everybody's definition will be different, but we should look at, of course, taking care of ourselves. And my definition of that is having fun, having good laughter at the end of the day, and changing something, for a bigger picture, some contribution.
Omkar, what's the new definition of success that the new world is having?
I think for me, success has always been about becoming a better version of yourself day by day. I think for me, it's a simple sort of understanding of it. I don't think this definition has changed for me personally. And I think this is what I see when I also hire people. Like, for example, as Gagandeep mentioned as well, that it doesn't matter whether you're from IIT, IIM, whatever that is, right? Like we don't look at these things either. What we're looking at is what is the progression, what is the delta. In calculus, you have delta, right? So like, as long as there is a delta, no matter whether it's big or small, as long as there is a delta, like there's an upward curve in everything or anything that you're doing. It could be a project that you're working on, it could be a skill that you're building. It could be, for example, I'm still, I think, not so good at speaking in public, but as a child, it was terrible. Like, I did not enjoy speaking in public, or, I did not enjoy interactions. But I know that there are many people who also face similar challenges. But are you doing something, even if it's a small thing, to change that on a day-to-day basis, on a week-to-week basis? I think that's, for me, is success. Like, success is not you reach it one day. You reach it every day in small amounts, and that aggregates together. And the sum is greater than the parts, is how I like to think about it. And it's just becoming a better version of yourself every day. This is something that I also draw from software engineering. You have something called version control in software engineering. Basically, everything that you build, you add something new, and then there's a new version of what it was before, even if it's something small, right? Even if you change the color of a button, it's an incremental evolution of that screen and therefore that entire system. So I draw from there, like it's becoming a better version of whoever you were yesterday, today, and similarly tomorrow.
Right, that's amazing. So I think, just before we open the questions for the children, if they have any to ask y'all, I just want to understand one quick thing from each one of you. Like, when y'all were on, planning your journey, I know nobody has a perfect answer, as Siddharth mentioned earlier, that if somebody was asking me what I would have planning to spend the rest of my life, definitely I don't have an answer. But how did you choose your niche? Like, how did you know that, yes, this is it? I want to play around this.
Should I answer?
Yeah. Yes, please.
So as I told you that when I wrote my first book, that is how I knew that this writing is something that intrigues me and I want to write something related to writing, something related to speaking, because I realized I have been speaking in my like annual functions. I have been doing anchoring. I have been doing all these things. So, the things that we are good at or things that we like, we have always been doing that in like somewhere someday we are into all those activities, though we do not notice those activities, because in back of our mind, in our subconscious, those activities are just like for happy moments for me, like a passion or hobby for me, but we have been doing all those things. And it is that moment when you realize that this is what is giving me happiness. That is how I realized that this was my niche, because like after attending like 8 hours of school, 2 hours, 2 to 4 hours of tuition, half an hour of writing gave me happiness. So I realized that is somewhere I want to be around. And when I had that answer, that yeah, still I do not have a perfect answer, but still I know that I want to play around these things. And for me, when I plan about the future, again, like I dream, obviously. Now I will not call it a plan. I dream that I want to do this after 5 years. Now I cannot plan for 5 years, because nobody could have ever imagined the pandemic would like change the entire face. So I cannot plan for 5 years. What I do is I plan for a week, a month or so. I plan small and plan to work to build that dream which I have. So plan small and have big dreams. And I believe that is why you can modify, amend your plan, so that if something new changes, you can adapt to the new system and not be very reluctant into that.
Right. Thank you, Siddharth. Yes, Omkar, could we listen?
For me, it was like I said, like I was teaching math and English to some of my friends, some of my cousins as a young child. So I really enjoyed the moment when when a person, for example, had difficulty understanding a topic or a concept, and whether it was me explaining or someone else explaining, I really enjoyed the joy when it clicked for them. And I said, I think I'd love to have this click moment for as many people as possible, especially in perceivably difficult subjects like science or mathematics, right? And that's basically what I said. Okay, I think something along these lines I'd love to do. And initially started as a hobby. I built an app that crossed 5 million downloads across 180 countries, and it was a hobby project. But then I said, like I've worked in banks, I've worked in e-commerce, and everything is great. There's a lot of money there, but the personal fire is in that click, right?
Yeah.
So when the pandemic hit, we said, okay, now is the time to make things click, and that's that's how I ended up doing what I'm doing now. And
Awesome.
yeah, it's a very simple answer. It's what Siddharth said: what gives you joy, right? What gives you happiness?
Great. So Gagandeep, I came to you last for a very special reason. When I was reading your profile and I went through some of your work, I saw you love to call yourself as a serial entrepreneur. So how do you do multitasking? I mean, I really want to know, and I'm sure many children here also would love to know.
I'm not really a great fan of the word as much as I love it, the word multitasking. And that's been one of my biggest questions to ask everybody, all my teachers around. Andrila ma'am can second that how do I do multiple things? But I discovered it only recently that you can do multiple things, but one at a time. Yeah. And I try to stick to the logic of what occurs to you naturally. So say it's very rare. You have to be a little practical. It's very rare that what you love doing, you might love to paint, okay? But you also have to earn some money and be successful. And that's all those things are important. So it's very rare that you'll exactly find that profession or that job or that project which will absolutely fit into that love of yours. So it is also do what you love and love what you do. You have to maintain a balance of both. So I think what occurs to you naturally should give you a little indication, and you need not be very hard on yourself. And I've been reading psychology lately, so when I read research papers, I understand that we're actually going back to basics. With every modern research, 6 years of research conducted in Harvard, and beautiful conclusion is what 5,000 years back was written in Chanakya Niti, and which was called Swadharma, the concept of Swadharma. So we are going back to basics in that space. You just need to see what you're good at naturally. Try to find the closest profession, whichever is available, and not be very, no, I don't like this, I don't like that. Just go for it once, and don't say no in the first go. Once you get the opportunity, just go for it. It has to, of course, it has to resonate with you somewhere naturally. Not in terms of your scores, not your mark sheet, not the school, nothing, not your parents. to you. It has to occur to you naturally. Now, what occurred to me naturally was people, something for people, something around people. And I think entrepreneurship was something, and the first project was a club that I had, like a cultural club. Then a club will have many people. I had a very simple and a very dumb answer for it. A club will have 5,000 people. I can be around 5,000 people. I love speaking, so I'll get to give speeches in my own project. And it became a success. My first company made 10 million, and we were like, so it's not as complex as it looks. It has to occur to you naturally, and you have to begin somewhere. You have to start somewhere, and you'll stumble upon it. You'll find something out of it, and then you keep growing. If it doesn't work, you do something else. But along with your natural skill, you will learn another skill, and then another skill, and then another skill. So just beginning somewhere, and it has to resonate with you somewhere.
That's nice. That's nice. That's correct.
Thank you so much, Siddharth, Omkar, Gagan. I think this was lovely. Any kid has any questions? Quickly, huh? We have next 3 minutes, and it was very informative session. If you have, please raise your hand, or we could also compile all your questions and they definitely love to reply to all of you and help you out if you have any conclusion. Thank you, Siddharth. Thanks, Omkar. Thank you, Gagan, for joining us. And I'm sure the kids have found it really, really interesting. And yeah, we shall connect over this soon.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having us.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you for having us.
Thank you so much.